I've sung the praises of Made In Cookware for a while now. I own many pieces myself. Now Made In has changed nonstick cookware for good with their ceramic-clad pans. They're premium stainless pans with next-gen ceramic coating free of harmful materials. Beautiful, even cooking, and easy to clean. It's even oven safe up to 550 degrees. How do I know how great they are? I added one to my kitchen. Don't need a nonstick pan? Made In has pots, cutlery, bakeware, glassware, and everything you need. Take your home cooking to the next level by upgrading your cookware by going to unitedwedrink.com/madein, MADEIN. Find out why pros trust Made In. Go to unitedwedrink.com/madein and upgrade your kitchen and cooking today. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour, more like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another new episode of the United We Drink podcast right here on UnitedWeDrink.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and I didn't really put a whole lot of thought into my first little line there, so fuck me. I am here, as always, with my good friends, Kevin Abbott and Tim Johnson.
Cheers.
Hello, Mike. Hello. And by the way, just so everyone knows, this is actually not Mike. This is an AI that we've programmed to do intros like Mike. That's why he fucked this up so bad. Mike would never do
I
this.
am a deep fake.
He's not lazy. He does things. He works hard at this. It's just the AI. It's just not there yet, guys. Give us a couple more years and we can fully replace Mike.
Yes, I'm all for replacing Mike. As long as Mike can make something off of being replaced, I'm for it. Yes, the AI is for it. Like, don't think too much of this. It's a very circular thing. It's like trying to understand time travel in a television show or movie.
Speaking of former co-hosts of the podcast, I had a good long conversation with Mr. Joel Codner this afternoon, and he wanted me to pass along hellos to both of you.
Oh, that's so nice.
I think that that's not nice. I think that that's the complete opposite of nice. AI Mike.
AI Mike out.
Mike drop.
Oh Jesus. All right, I'm done.
Okay, bring Mike back in. Bring real Mike back in. I'm not going to take these hokey jokes from the AI all day.
No.
Okay, I'm here. What did I miss?
I don't know. Something about Al. I think that's all. Whenever I see AI, the only thing I ever think is Al, which I really want there to be a Weird Al AI. I think that would be brilliant.
And combined with a little bit of Al from Home Improvement, and also
Al Bundy.
Al Bundy, yes. Also the girl Al from Step by Step. I'll go through like 90s sitcoms right here.
Welcome to United We Al.
All right, Tim, what are you drinking tonight?
Right now I am drinking a Michelada from Monster, actually.
Shout out to Phil.
Shout out to Phil. Yeah, I decided I had to stop in the bodega, and I saw that in the cooler. I'm like, I kind of want to get that. It's awesome. It's got Mexican wrestling masks on the can, and I have to say it is quite tasty. It's lime, it's salt, it's kind of everything I wanted right now. It's kind of refreshing for a, I mean, it's 70 degrees here in Minnesota, so it's damn near balmy. So this is perfect.
Is there tomato in it?
No. This is more just a salt and lime. Not all Micheladas have to have a tomato necessarily.
I thought Michelada had tomato. A chilada was without tomato.
Well,
But
this is the Michi Chilada, so I don't know.
okay.
Yeah.
Michichi. Chichi is a celebration of food, by the way.
Not anymore.
I'm.
They're coming back.
Are
Did
they
you hear that?
Chi-Chi's?
Yeah, so that's a Minnesota-based brand, and like I guess like the son of the original owner or grandson or whatever wants to bring them back.
As
With or without
restaurants?
with or without the E. coli outbreaks? Are they going to bring those back
I'm
too?
hoping without the E. coli outbreaks, but I
Okay.
do. So I did meet Nelson after the rain. Nelson, the two blonde twins from '90s music fame, in a Chi-Chi's in Davenport, Iowa, in the '90s. And I used to have a Chi-Chi's "How is our service card?" Remember, our restaurants used to have like the "How is our service card," and it said, "To Tim, keep rocking, Matthew and Gunnar Nelson."
I think that we should have a segment of this show that
Where
is
we actually
just
talk about beer? Correct.
no,
We
no,
should.
no. We'll get there, but we should have a segment of the show where Tim tells a folksy story about life in Minnesota, and that it will just track you. We do it already. We should just make it a formal thing that we highlight, like this little intro to it.
I'm
You
like
know what I'm sorry.
I'm
Go ahead, Tim.
like Garrison Beeler.
I don't know who that is.
Garrison Keeler, you know who Garrison Keeler is?
Oh, I've heard the name Garrison Keeler. I thought you said
Okay.
Beeler in the first
Well, I'm
time,
saying
but
Beerler. I'm Garrison. I'm the Garrison Keeler of beer.
So I'm spitballing a name here. What if we call it "You Betcha" by Tim Johnson?
I feel like that would be very overplayed with literally
Okay.
every single thing.
Okay.
Oh,
Sorry.
no.
So sorry with Tim Johnson.
You're skewing a little Canadian there.
Oh, sorry.
what's the difference? Okay, what I'm
God,
drinking
socialist
today,
medicine.
what I'm drinking today is actually Vitus by Weinstefaner. This is a really, really great beer that I do not have very often. Every time I have one, I'm like, oh my God, I want to drink this all the time. And then like a year later, I go, oh, I remember that beer. But this is fantastic. I love that it is listed as a Weizenbach in the tiniest little letters in the bottom right here. But the more descriptive words are strong wheat beer, which I love the difference in marketing between, European beers sold in Europe and European beers sold in the US, where they have to dumb things down very significantly for us.
There is also the legalities on what they can put
Oh,
on from one country to another.
That's true.
good
There
point.
is that.
Good point, Mike.
Because that's what I do. That's
Terrible
why they
point,
call me
Mike.
Mike
Terrible,
Goodpoint
terrible.
Urevich. That is what they call me.
Yep, something like that.
So I'm having a beer from Zillicoa. They're one of the breweries who suffered big time from Helena, the hurricane in the Asheville area. I'm having their Mother Vine. It's a mixed culture saison with wild grapes. They use North Carolina grown barley and wheat. That brewery they're on their way getting back on their feet. They're rebuilding. Fantastic mixed culture beers, fantastic lager program over there. I can't wait for them to get back up and going. And I am having this beer because mixed culture beers are going to come up a little bit later as we talk about. That's probably a bad introduction. So Kevin opened up ChatGPT and asked it to create a brewery. Pretty much like from the ground up. You had it give a business plan, come up with a name, a marketing strategy, beers, I like everything. You want to explain kind of the prompt that you told it to do?
So, as someone who is currently in school, I'm using ChatGPT a lot because it is great for idea generation and for just finding like a starting point for a lot of things that we're doing. So, I've learned to use this tool really well. So, what I did was I asked it to create a brewery from scratch. I wanted to tell me where the brewery is going to be located. As Mike said, full marketing plan, give me brands, names, concepts. so styles as well. Also give me the planned production as far as what size the brewery should be, what kind of markets it should go after. Should it go after bigger market, or I'm sorry, like grocery store chains with package, or small independent retailers? Basically, it was probably 10 sentences overall for the prompt, trying to really dive down into this as much as possible. So I didn't, because a lot of times it will ask you extra questions afterwards. So I wanted to give it as much runway as possible. And then after it gave me all that, I asked some follow-up questions. So I actually have not only all this initial information, but it has a full year marketing plan,
Oh wow.
including social media strategy and special events. It has collaborations that I should be doing with my new brewery. And I'm going to be really interested to know. I am not as plugged in as either one of you guys are into the current craft beer climate, especially outside of my little bubble in South Florida. But it's talking about specific breweries, and it's talking about restaurants. I'll be interested to know if you guys have heard of any of these when we get to it.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I was like, I was curious that if these places were even real or if it just like pulled these things. But one of the breweries I absolutely know, so it's at least getting some information correct.
Are you talking about the one in North Carolina?
Yes.
I was gonna say, because that was the same one that I was familiar with as well.
So we thought it would be cool to just run this look through it all and give our critiques on if we think that this is a sensible thing, which we know that this is going to have a lot of issues to it, but that's what makes it fun. Because, we like to have fun. Kevin, you, I believe, have muted yourself, so you should unmute yourself.
Sorry. I was opening a beer. I didn't want to be obnoxious. Sorry. And also, Tim ran a prompt as well and got some a good. I was really happy to see Tim do that because I really wanted to see someone else running a very similar prompt. Would it give you similar ideas? Because just as a quick back aside into my school, we do these discussion board posts, 20 students once a week. All my stuff's online. And I pride myself, and maybe I'm deluding myself, in being able to say, that's ChatGPT, that's ChatGPT, that's real, that's ChatGPT. My wife is a professor, so she also says that she has an easy time picking out AI generated content because it tends to use this very similar language, very similar ideas. Even if it's done a little bit different, a keen eye and reading the same thing over and over again can pick it out. So I wanted to see if there was some threads, and there are some similarities to what Tim got, but I was kind of impressed that there were some significant differences as well.
Yeah, I literally, by the way, just copied and pasted from your text.
Okay,
and
perfect.
and pasted that in, so I didn't feed it anything different. Because I was worried, like like my initial thought was it was going to spit back basically the same thing that you'd gotten.
Right.
And it didn't, which was kind of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
it is laid out different a bit, but there are some things here that look similar. So should we go like introduce them both and then go from like looking at each one's different, like, okay, the brand concept, the location, the brands. Should we look at them side by side or do all of one brewery and then the other?
I kind of like side by. What did you say? I was gonna say I think I like side by side as we go through each one of those things. Although Kevin did end up going more in depth, so I'm really curious on the rest.
How about this? How about I lead off and I'll start with like a section, and Tim, you chime in with your section, and then eventually you're going to run out of sections, and then we'll just kind of keep going. So, the brewery, and by the way, part of me, all of me wishes I was independently wealthy and I had unlimited cash to do whatever I wanted. But if I could do that, so much of me wants to just have ChatGPT make all my decisions, make this brewery, and every time there's any question about anything, type it in a ChatGPT and just do it and see what happens. That would be a fascinating experiment to me.
I
My
wish
investors are questioning my reliance on you for business acumen.
Kill them all.
I
What?
frankly tried to ask Chat GPT how to get independently wealthy. And it was of no help. But I was really hoping that it would get me there so that we could go ahead and execute that in real life because I like that plan.
That's a vicious circle right there. It actually said, "Let's open this brewery." Okay, so my brewery concept. Once again, I gave this. I only asked a question. I gave it nothing to base it off of. No region, no styles, no concept, no nothing. The concept that it came up out of its own was fault line fermentations. Hashtag catchphrase: "Where the earth moves, so does the beer." I don't. I mean, I guess it like is on brand, but it doesn't make any sense. I don't think that makes any sense whatsoever. But fault line fermentations. What do you guys think about that?
It's
Uh,
alliteration.
Honestly, when I think about some of the brewery names around here, I actually like that a lot more than some of the terrible names that we. There's one here called Fat Pants. It's literally called Fat Pants Brewing. Like, I will take fault line fermentations over Fat Pants any day.
So I will also say that I like the idea of it's not brewery or brewing.
Yeah,
It's fermentations.
Yeah.
I kind of dig that. I don't mind that at all.
yeah.
So I'm going to talk about my location of fault line fermentations,
Well,
and then
real
Tim,
quick,
you can jump into yours.
with
Go ahead.
the naming, because if Joel is listening to this, he's losing his fucking mind because
Oh,
he
yeah, he is.
hates breweries that use the oddball names like Aleworks, Fermentation Beer Project. He especially hates Beer Project because it makes it seem like it's not an actual job. But like I can hear him losing his shit. Now, a funny thing though is I don't know if this was just how ChatGPT did it, but it put an underscore before fault line and an underscore after fermentations as well, with the company name.
But later on in the text, it doesn't do that. So I don't know if that was just like a bug in the thing. But okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about the location. This is going to be located in Eureka, California, Humboldt County. This is what it says: coastal, earthy, a bit isolated, rich in character, and close to the agriculture and cannabis culture. It has a proximity to both the coast and the redwoods, makes it a natural fit for rugged, terroir-inspired beer. Far enough from the major markets to create mystique, but close enough to ship to San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle easily. Appeals to an outdoorsy, intentional living crowd with a deep-rooted DIY ethos. Now, let me ask you this. We've got somebody who is outdoorsy and it has deep-rooted DIY ethos here on our podcast. Does this appeal to you, Tim?
Honestly, I was gonna say that is actually one of the better descriptions I've heard. Again, reading over business plans here in town, I actually was fairly impressed by that description. Now, I mean, is it vague enough to not really
Mean anything?
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, if I have to hear one more brewery about us say that we're passionate about making high quality beer, like, yeah, of course you are. Like, literally everyone is. That should be the price of entry. So, like it at least sort of establishes itself. I love the reference of terroir. It fully forms into that fermentation type of ethos, but it actually also fits the region, frankly. So I was fairly impressed with that one when I read it. I thought, yeah, that
It's
one
not
makes
bad.
sense. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I would not hesitate to put that on a business proposal that no investor is actually going to bother to read. So I think that's great.
All right,
Yeah.
Tim, what do you got?
All right, so I have Pioneers Cove Brewing. The location here is nestled in the outskirts of Asheville, North Carolina, an area known for its vibrant craft beer scene. Stunning mountain views and outdoor lifestyle. The brewery would take advantage of the region's natural beauty and be situated on a plot of land with ample space for a tap room, outdoor beer garden, and seasonal food trucks.
Uh,
Yeah.
So I think that it is absolutely something that a computer would think would be the
Yeah.
right idea for an Asheville brewery.
Oh, for sure.
As if there isn't already 50 breweries in the Asheville area doing the
Yeah.
same exact
Yeah.
thing.
Where am I going to find a plot of land with ample space for all of this and mountainous views in the Asheville area that is not already taken?
I love the fact that we both asked them to give us the place for a brewery, and they gave us California and North Carolina.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the two places where all the breweries are. So
Yeah.
that's hilarious. I also feel like what they really wanted to do is they wanted to have a Pirates Cove brewing and a Buccaneers Cove brewing, but they messed up and made it Pioneers Cove brewing.
And I didn't dig into this deeply, but I did look. I couldn't find a Pioneers Cove in North Carolina, so it's like they literally just made it up. I
That was
could
gonna
find a
be a
I could
question.
find a Pioneers Cove in Texas, but I couldn't find a Pioneers Cove in North Carolina. Maybe Google just is just letting me down, but I thought that was kind of funny.
The
So
other
Kevin's name at least fits California a bit more, so he gets kind of like a little tick there for
well,
Yeah.
coming up with a better geographical name.
Well, I'll say this though, is that these are two different ideas, but there is so much overlap in the
Mhm.
overriding concept. You know, pioneer, you're trying to have this outdoorsy spirit of, do it yourself nature and, quality around, the mother earth and things of that nature that both these are doing. They're just doing it in a slightly different way, so which makes sense because that is what so many I mean, this is what it's doing. It's a language, it's a large like language model, so it's pulling all this information from every brewery and it's distilling it down into what this should be, and these are the kind of things that breweries are saying.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if you were to say what's uh what environment should a bearded white guy in a flannel shirt be in? Like that's what they picked. They picked like a rugged outdoorsy type of thing,
Mhm.
which has the overlap of
Rugged.
the yeah,
I like
the
that's what I was looking for earlier.
yep. Yep.
So let's move on to my concept and brand identity. Now we know a little bit about this terroir driven, locally and seasonal sourced ingredients. What I love about this, the first thing that struck me was fermentation driven flavor. It says mixed cultures, spontaneous ales, and wood aged beers. Now, one of the three of us owned at least a part of a brewery that just went out of business doing this exact thing. By the way, a brewery with tons of medals from like GABF and Great American Beer Fest, a very, very highly thought of brewery that could not make a buck. So the idea that ChatGPT is giving us a brewery that in some ways focuses on mixed cultures and spontaneous fermentation is that's not a good idea, guys. I want to complain to their manager. I also like the fact they're going with a geological concept for all the names of the beers, all the artwork. I also like the challenge that it gave me that we would be carbon neutral by year 3. Screw you,
Crazy.
Chat GPT.
Holy
That's hard to
shit.
do. That's really hard to do. Why are you putting that on me? This is not a big enough brewery to get to that spot, to that point. 3 years?
Carbon neutral.
3 years. I don't think so. It also says that it sits at the intersection of old world tradition and West Coast experimentation. Kind
Oh
of like
wow.
kind of like kind of like what Crooked Stave meets Cellar Maker would look like.
Hmm.
Now I know Crooked Stave, I don't know Cellar Maker.
I've been to Cellar Maker in San Francisco.
Okay.
They make some amazing beers.
What's funny to me is I feel like the evolution of both of those brands are they are each other. Like so, Cricket Stave started off as a very mixed culture fermentation driven brewery, but they make a ton of clean beers now. They make IPAs, they make pilsners, they make the whole gamut of beers. And then Cellar Maker was a very American focused brewery, like very IPA heavy, stout heavy.
Yeah, they
But
had
then
a
they
stout
bought,
called Coffee and Cigarettes that I
yeah,
fucking loved. Yeah.
and then they bought the Rare Barrel a few years ago, who are a fermentation flavor driven brewery, and now are doing those. So it's like Crooked Stave went from mixed culture to clean. Cellar Maker went from clean to mixed culture. They're essentially the same thing. It's trying to
Yeah.
say one meets the other is like oxymoronic.
Well, Crooked Stave wasn't even brewing their own beer. They were
Yeah.
originally just a fermentary at first, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but think of this when you said coffee and cigarettes. I was thinking about the Simpsons, one of the later years where they go to Colorado to a film festival, and Homer says, "I'll finally get to meet Jim Jarmusch and ask him who he is." It was one of the most contemporary Simpsons jokes. I love that. Okay, so Tim, what do you got in this in a similar vein?
Okay, so Pioneers Cove Brewing would be a craft brewery focused on innovative, boundary-pushing beers that draw inspiration from the rich history of American frontier exploration. Which, first of all, North Carolina is not very far
Colonialism?
into America to be frontier, in my opinion.
No.
The brewery would embrace experimental brewing techniques combining old world styles with new age ingredients to create unique, flavorful brews. The brand identity would be rugged, adventurous, and bold, with imagery and names reflecting themes of exploration, nature, and the spirit of discovery. And it also says here, this concept brings a lot of personality to the table by combining the appeal of craft beer with a sense of adventure. It's geared toward creating a community around the brewery and integrating it into a location that has a deep craft beer culture. The beer names and branding speak to the identity of pioneering spirit and exploration.
Just once, I want a brewery that leans on new world traditions and
And
old
old
world
world ingredients.
experimentation.
Yeah.
Old world experimentation.
Yeah.
I mean, these are such overlapping concepts, right?
I'm gonna make a hazy IPA with nothing but fuggles. I think.
Love it. That's why we
Come
do
on, a
things
little
around
bit of
here.
EKG, please, please.
Okay, let's get
Wait,
into let's. I'm sorry, go
How
ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say, how esoteric is it that we have a podcast where I can make that joke and you guys laugh, and like a third of our listeners are like, "What the fuck does that even? That's dumb."
That's great. We're only here to entertain ourselves. If anyone who's on board with this podcast for a long enough period of time knows that for certain, we're just here for
Okay,
ourselves.
if you're down with what we were just talking about,
Say nothing.
tweet or whatever message, however you do Blue Sky, whatever posting like that is called. Just send us at us and say fuggles, and then we'll know that you're down.
I think people
Okay.
think those were some old Jim Henson Muppets. Actually, I'm pretty sure.
The Fuggles?
The fuggles.
Meet the fuggles.
Down in Fuggle Rock. So I'm going to get into the beer program, which is what
Okay,
this is
yep.
listed at.
Yeah,
And we're gonna talk about the core lineup and our limited and experimental lineup of beers. Now I'm going to go through this lineup, and I'm going to give you the name and the style, and I want you guys, before talking about the names, if they're stupid or not, I want you to tell me if this is a good core lineup for a brewery, and you realistically in your estimation. So I've got Crust Breaker, a rustic saison with California-grown spelt, aged in neutral oak. I have Subduction Hazy, a hazy IPA with native yeasts and Northwest hops. Slump Pale, a classic West Coast style pale ale with punchy bitterness and dank pine. I might be pronouncing this wrong. Fumarole, smoked amber lager with redwood bark smoked malt. And Epicenter Pils, a Czech style Pilsner with Humboldt hops. So I've got a Pilsner, a smoked amber lager, a West Coast pale ale, a hazy IPA, and a spelt rustic saison. How's that tickle you for a core lineup?
So I personally love this lineup, but I don't know if it's gonna sell. Like first, a saison is I think fantastic. I also really love that name, Crustbreaker.
Crustbreaker?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that's a great name for a saison.
I think
And
I think
Tim
it makes me.
disagrees?
No, I completely disagree with the name. I love the idea. I,
With
it's funny
spelt,
because
by the way? Does the
well,
spelt tickle you guys?
I
yeah,
think that's
I'm
yeah.
for
I think
spelt
yeah.
in
Okay.
saisons.
I think that would be great. Honestly, we've had this whole kind of like debate here in Minnesota about how saisons don't sell, and breweries are starting to find a lot of success with them again now that they're teaching people how to drink saisons. A lot of people that as wild and sour, have gone out of favor on a lot of things. People are finding their niche with saison. Like it's coming around. I actually don't hate that. I wouldn't make that my flagship if that was going to be the first one there. But I think that would be, especially in Eureka, California. I think that beer would actually probably do okay.
Okay. I like the idea of a smoked amber lager. I love smoked beers. I don't think it will sell for shit. But once
Uh,
again, if you're talking about a core beer for a tap room, I mean, this is a Czech style pilsner. You're
Fumarole
like
is how it is pronounced,
fumarole.
and it is the opening in or near a volcano.
Okay. So, and that makes sense. Smoked amber lager. That works. That works for
Hmm.
me. I mean, you've got a Czech style pilsner for your everyday drinking beer. You got a pale ale. You got a hazy. You've got a unique amber lager and a saison. It's not a bad lineup. It's interesting. Now let's
I
get into the
also kind of
limited.
like all these names too. I
Okay.
just want to say, like, Subduction, I think
Yeah.
fits with the whole hazy naming culture.
Okay, you
Uh,
like Slump?
I
Slump
love
pale.
Slump.
Why
For
slump?
For
Slump?
I
some
don't.
Okay, so here's my thought process on it, and it has nothing to do with tectonics either. Like it's a West Coast beer. So we we haven't been seeing West Coasts until again recently, like probably the last year or so. They were in a slump. Now they're coming out of that slump. I kind of like the name slump as referring to a West Coast beer because it's now just picking back up and coming out of it. And you're just kind of owning that people were down on you, but you were there all along. I don't know.
So I do want to point out that I'm sure some of these words like epicenter have been used in a beer at some point. So I didn't, we haven't checked on Untapped to see if any of these have been used before. But so that's the core lineup. I do want to get into before we jump over to Tim. This is the experimental. This is the Aftershock series. The
Ooh.
Aftershock. So we have the Tectonic series, which was the core, and the Aftershock series that we have. Now, the Aftershock has liquefaction, a Brett fermented golden sour with pluots from Sonoma,
Hmm.
mantle milk, a pastry stout with local hazelnuts, maple syrup, aged in used whiskey barrels, friction fruit, a rotating fruit mixed culture ale aged in wine barrels, and pressure drop, a goes with kelp and yuzu.
So I was with you on the first one, and then it dropped off a cliff. Mantle milk. I
What the
I
fuck does
don't
that
need
mean?
no. It sounds like a lactating He-Man character.
And friction fruit sounds somewhat
Yeah.
sexual. I don't know.
Yeah.
I am really interested in a couple of things here. One, I was just because I was involved in Odd Breed Wild Ales and Matt Manthe used pluots a couple times. The fact that they did a Brett fermented golden sour with pluots, I was like, "Are you reading my emails, Chat GPT? Because some of the stuff you're giving me, I've done in the past."
Uh,
But
so
I mean that first one actually sounded like it would be delightful. I think I would want that.
But what's even crazier to me is liquefaction. It sounds like a beer that Russian River should be making.
Yep.
mhm,
And it uses pluots from Sonoma, where Russian River is located
right.
at. um, Mantle Milk is actually the name of a skincare product. Like, it's fucking
So
gross as a name.
so guys, a goes with kelp
Yeah, that
and
one
yuzu?
that
What
that one
kelp?
lost me entirely.
Is
There
that
was a
something people are using?
I don't know. There was a
One of
brewer in
them.
here that made a beer with milfoil, and I think they got in trouble because that was their approved ingredient. But nothing about that makes me want to have that.
No. And I get what the concept, like, because you're hoping, I guess, to get the salinity for a goza from kelp instead of using salts. But, okay, no. And
No,
I'm an adventurous, but
Well,
I
apparently the cores did well. The experimentation needs a little bit more experimentation.
but again, I mean, one of them, like I said,
Yeah.
that first one with the pluots, I would actually be very interested in that. I think that would be great.
All right, Tim, what do you got?
the name needs some work though,
You
because it
like
still is like
slump.
liquefaction. Yes, all beer is liquid.
You like okay? So sorry, not to derail this entirely, but to go back at Slump, when I was at Buffalo Wild Wings and we made Game Changer Ale, we originally wanted to name it Slump Buster, uh, and then that literally comes from I think it's Mark Grace.
Yeah, I was it Mark Race, but I
I
do know what the term means.
yeah, exactly, and so that got shut down.
I
But
feel
that's
like
what
that
that
was a topic of an episode of the League.
it could be. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So the beers in my lineup here are Riverside Red IPA, a balanced blend of malt sweetness and citrus hop bitterness, symbolizing the rugged is going to be a word in here a lot, of the American river systems. Trailblazer Wheat, a smooth and refreshing wheat beer brewed with local wildflower honey and citrus zest, representing the freshness of the trail. Outlaw Oatmeal Stout, which is probably a name that's been taken by 7 billion breweries. A rich and creamy stout with roasted coffee and chocolate notes, reflecting the rebellious spirit of outlaws. Pioneer Pale Ale, a clean, crisp pale ale with floral and citrus notes, embodying the optimism of early settlers. And Frontier Sour, mixed fermentation beer aged in oak barrels, offering a funky and tart profile, perfect for adventurous drinkers.
So my first thoughts when I hear that lineup is 90s brew pub.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Immediately, that was the very first thing I thought when I read it. It was like, holy
Names
shit.
and
they're rock
styles,
bottom.
except for the sour, names
Yeah.
and styles. Like the only thing missing is a brown ale, pretty much. You
Yeah.
got an amber ale in the IPA, so you got 2 for 1 with that one.
Yeah,
Uh,
it is basically a rock bottom circa 1998.
Yep.
I mean,
Um,
you definitely got a much more generic uh, output for the
Yeah.
beers that it gave you.
well, there's no hazy. The only IPA is a red IPA. There's a wheat, which I thought was weird. I mean, a stout, a pale, fine. A wheat, if you just rebranded that as Trailblazer Hazy, I think you'd probably get away with it. um, but yeah, a red IPA to kick things off, I thought was a very, very odd choice.
I mean, listen, if you had a small brew pub with this rundown and each one of these beers was well made, that would be great because each one of these beer styles are delicious in the hands of the right brewer. But
Yeah,
none of
and I
this
think
speaks to a big production brewery that should be selling beer in grocery stores in
oh
2025.
yeah, no, that is a place where like the three of us would be the customers, and that's about it.
And they go out of business in 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. It was really funny because I don't know, I was disappointed by it. And again, the names were also nice and generic, and I laughed at a couple things like the Trailblazer represented the freshness of the trail. Now, as someone who hits trails an awful lot, I can tell you I feel anything but fresh after about 2 days on a trail.
I feel anything but fresh after 3 hours on a trail. Like,
I feel anything but fresh, but by thinking about going on a trail, that's not something that I'm interested in.
and
So
I live in Florida, and I don't think that I've ever smelt citrus zest on a trail as an aroma.
No, that's true. That's true. And I do like the wildflower honey though. I think that was kind of a nice touch. The one that really got me though was outlaw oatmeal stout. I was like, that is the most generic Like literally, like you said, '90s brew pub. Like literally every tourist town on their.
Pioneer Pale, like any type of alliteration like that is so old
When
and
when
There's nothing
used.
pioneering about it. Is what you're saying?
That
there's
is what
two
I am saying.
Yeah.
there's two things that come to my mind when thinking about this. One, this brew pub would have a Cracker Barrel style gift shop
Yep.
that sold plastic tomahawks to children and little
Yep.
bow and arrow sets for one.
Like yep, and
Uh,
horseshoes.
yeah. And two, when we opened Barrel of Monks and we were trying to go through names for beers, one of the partners, every beer they presented had alliteration. Absolutely every beer. And I was just like, oh my God, do we have to do this? Let's not do this. Even the early days of Funky, we had a lot of beers that we had Petey Porter and Kaya Kolsch and a lot of things like that, which is interesting. Okay, I'm gonna deviate back into my brewery. And
Yeah.
I was looking at Tim, I was looking at yours. You've got a couple different sections that
Mhm.
I don't have here. They're just not organized in the same way. So I'm going to jump into there's not really a lot here actually to go over, but the facility size and capacity. This is
Yeah.
telling me that I should have a 10-barrel brew house with a 30-barrel fermenter capacity. That's not really a thing. I mean, how many fermenters and 30-barrel
Yeah.
fermenters make sense, but you're Chat GPT, you're pulling stuff off the internet. I get it. Um, but it says we have room to expand to a 20 barrel within 3 years. ChatGPT really has some goals for me
Yeah.
because I have to be carbon neutral. I have to expand. I have all these things I got
You
to
have to
do.
be carbon neutral while you're expanding.
I mean, that's even more impossible. I got fooders. I have barrels for barrel aging. I love how specific this is. Tap room seating, 75 indoor, 50 outdoor. I have to have a garden area with redwood planters, heaters, and fire pits. And my interior is rustic with reclaimed wood, black steel, and volcanic basalt stonework. Basalt
Salt.
stonework.
Basalt.
What's that?
Basalt.
Basalt. What's basalt?
Mhm.
I don't know what that is.
I'm gonna
Um.
look up what it's a rock.
Yeah. It's like a volcanic rock. Yeah.
But I want to see what volcanic basalt stonework looks like.
Yeah.
Uh, this a small tap room.
Oh, well, listen. And by the way, and we're going to get into what it's saying about my mix and my target markets
Ooh,
later
I like
on.
I like volcanic basalt.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's black.
Yeah. Black. No, but 75 capacity for a 10-barrel brew house. That doesn't seem too small. That seems like that part makes sense.
This is really my brewery here from ChatGPT is really focusing on small production and more niche marketing. So
Okay.
that's, I think, was actually different than Tim's. What does yours say about this?
Yeah, my production's got mid-size with the ability to produce around 15,000 barrels annually, allowing for the balance of local and regional distribution without being too large to lose the personal touch that craft beer drinkers value.
Congratulations. I mean,
Yeah,
15,000. Good for you, man.
yeah, right. The
I've
space would
never
be
broke 2,200.
the space would be around 5,000 square feet with a cozy rustic interior. It loves to have rustic on everything, featuring reclaimed wood, industrial touches, and a large mural of the American frontier. Again, this is North Carolina. That's not the frontier. That's not the frontier. The frontier was like the Old West. It's not. There would be room for 15 to 20 draft lines and a private event space for community gatherings.
Well, I mean,
Like-
it's rustic.
I mean, I like the idea of taking advantage of the mountains
Rustic
and the
with touches
trees.
of industrial.
Yeah, like I like that idea. But when you say frontier, these are the people who left a state that's literally on the coast. Like it's like you're moving west with this stuff. So I don't get that.
They
whole-
started out in Wilmington, North Carolina, right on the coast. And they're like, I am searching for the next frontier. And they got to Asheville and like, done.
We're here. Settle this bitch.
Yeah,
This is the final frontier.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. But yeah, 15,000 barrels. Without being too large, lose the personal touch that craft beer
With that
drinkers value.
portfolio, ooh.
Yeah,
Oh.
right.
So I'm looking at, so I've got package and draft mix as well as my target markets, which I think are the last two things that you have in
Yeah,
yours.
draft and
Uh,
package mix and target
yeah.
markets. Yep.
So a 60-40 draft to package mix. So 60 draft, 40% package. And that says year 1 and 2, but shifting to a 50-50 mix by year 3. Now that's a realistic thing. As you grow as a brewery, you just generally switch to a larger proportion of package because you're in more places, you're more well known. That's typical. So that makes a lot
Mhm.
of sense. I but their recommendation for me is regional self distribution. Now I understand that in certain areas of the country this is a realistic thing. Uh, it's hard for me to conceptualize it. I'm not in Eureka, California. Regional distribution is not possible, or self distribution is not possible in Florida. Even if it was, it's a non-starter for any brewery of any decent size, and I can't imagine doing it. But regional self distribution, 16-ounce cans for IPAs and stouts, and 500 ml bottles for mixed fermentation beers. That's what I have for packaging and draft mix.
So
Interesting.
it's the self-distribution model for this, like you can do that. You can do that in California, but to Humble and Mendocino will be enough of a challenge. Like San Francisco is like 4.5 hours from Eureka. Like Portland,
Yeah, it's not close.
Portland is probably like 6, and you're crossing a state line where you cannot self-distribute over a state line.
You know what, Tim? Because these are kind of mixed together, I'm just going to give you the target markets, and then you can cover your whole thing.
Yeah, perfect. Yep, do it.
The focus here is independent bars and beer-focused restaurants in Northern California and the Pacific Northwest. That makes perfect sense, in my opinion, for a brewery like this, especially bottle shops and co-ops, right? This is what you would be doing with a brewery like this. And a curated beer subscriptions and niche online platforms. Sure. Secondary outlets in years 3 to 5, once again, giving me lots of goals, would be small grocery store chains with a natural organic focus and direct to consumer where applicable in California and Oregon. That's a really good suggestion in my opinion. If you are opening a brewery like this with these kind of products, which are kind of niche, this is what you should be focusing on. It's not telling me to go to Ralph's and try to sell my IPA in 12-ounce 6-packs because that wouldn't work. So
Also, they don't have Ralph's in Northern California, so
that's the only California brand I could think of. I've never been out there other than once San Francisco. So I thought I was doing a good pull, but thank you, Tim, for quashing my
I don't
dreams.
remember a Ralph's up there, but I could be wrong. But I don't remember any up there.
No, I
Anyway.
have no idea. This is just
I
something I saw.
yeah, I don't remember. I thought it was a good reference, and then now I'm like, oh yeah, I really haven't seen one up there before.
Anyway,
Too much on that. But no, I think the packaging and draft mix and the target markets are really well done. If you were researching for yourself in reality to start a brewery, this would be good recommendations in my opinion.
I don't have a real problem with that. I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, again, I mean, I think it's easier said than done, but it's a good goal.
You can't just do it because you put it on a piece of paper. But if that is what if it was telling you, once again, you're going to do large chain grocery from day one, that's a completely unrealistic goal. So I like the fact that it's a realistic thing that a smaller brewery could aspire to. What do you
Absolutely. Now, I really hope that you have deep pockets, because at 10-barrel brew house to be able to hire a sales staff to do all of that, especially in self-distro, you're gonna need to have a really good sales team. But yeah, I like, again, for the goal, I guess it's a good kind of like framework to work within. For mine, 60% of this production would be sold through local bars, restaurants, and tap room as draft. The goal would be to have strong relationships with independent businesses that align with the brewery's adventurous and local ethos. That said a whole lot of nothing. Package, 40% would be canned or bottled and sold through local grocery stores, bottle shops, and select regional distributors. Packaging would feature bold, eye-catching designs and each can will include fun historical tidbits about frontier exploration.
That's what I want.
People love tidbits about frontier exploration on their cans of beer.
Well, we're gonna actually sell them in Snapple bottles, and when you pop open the cap, there's gonna be a fun frontier exploration fact.
Or you could have those little stick-on like stickers with like the Bazooka Joe comics that you like kind of
Yeah.
pull off and unfold.
Oh yeah, you unfold and there's a little Davy Crockett reference there. Yeah, for sure.
What actually? There is a beer. I think it might still exist in PA. I think it was called Lion Lager. It's like a kind of a macro-ish thing, but by a larger regional brewery. And they had the little like picture puzzles on the bottom of the bottle caps. So you
Oh.
pop the bottle, and it's like I plus
Yeah.
heart plus you, like those little things on the bottom of all the bottle caps.
I was down the road at Bullshorn a couple weeks ago, and a guy got a Mickey's grenade, and the Mickey's grenade still have those.
Oh,
at
they
the
got
bottom of
those?
Yeah, they still have. They've had those on there forever. I was just laughing at him that A, he was drinking a Mickey's grenade, and B, Mickey's grenades are still a thing. But yeah, he had like 4, and so he would always ask me if I could solve the puzzle. He was not a very smart man. Target markets here: independent bars and small retail locations. Pioneers Cove would primarily target small independent bars, farm to table restaurants, and specialty retail locations which value quality and are looking to introduce unique craft beers to their patrons. At 15,000 barrels a year,
That was what I was gonna say.
yeah, right.
You better be in fucking sets
Yeah.
and have like restaurant mandates.
Yeah, adventure and outdoor enthusiasts. Given the brewery's adventurous and rugged brand, that's like the 5th rugged in here. It would also focus on building relationships with outdoor retailers, gear shops, and events that attract like-minded crowds. Think hiking clubs, mountain biking events, music festivals. So I really got to plan an REI to carry my beer, apparently. Expanding to regional distribution over time, the brewery could slowly expand its reach, gaining a presence in larger regional grocery chains while maintaining its authenticity and connection to its core community.
So there's something here between these two brands that we have seen. Like there's some thought and nuance put into like Kevin's brand by it,
Mhm.
like with deliberate growth
Yep.
in mind, where yours it starts large pretty much from the beginning with high
Yeah.
ambitions through very small incremental sales, like it's and a brand that is tone deaf in the way of just being outdated. Like it's so crazy that the same system came up with these two different concepts
Yeah, like entirely different
off the same prompt.
on that, which is funny because there is a lot of overlap on like
Yes.
the outdoorsy and
Well,
the
you're-
rugged and things
yeah.
like that. But as far as the ability to execute
Your draft
them,
package mix is exactly the same too.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that no matter what you put in there, it's always going to say 60-40. I'm willing to bet that. I mean, because like that's the standard that like everyone says anyway. I'm willing to bet it's scaring the internet. That's what they get.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And just by the way, and I'm going to go into so because Tim's prompts have like exhausted. I've got a lot
Yep.
more. I've got a lot more stuff here. But I was interested. I wanted to see what else ChatGPT would do for me. So I asked it questions about like Barrel Amongst Brewing and what Barrel Amongst Brewing was all about and who started it. It was actually accurate. It pulled off information from our website, from Google reviews, from all this other stuff on the internet, and it was just parroting back information that we fed the internet
Mhm.
to me, and actually showed the sources of where it came from, which I thought was very interesting. I mean, it shows what this large language model does, as you said, Tim, taking the 60-40 split and just pulling it from like 500 sources and saying, well, this is your split for your craft brewery because you're a craft brewery. So it's not a genius giving me good advice. It's just pulling the
The
biggest
wisdom of the
data set.
crowd, kind of. Yeah. I wanted to
Yeah.
create a website called Wikipedia, which is just like Wikipedia, only none of it is true. Like everything is false, so that ChatGPT gets totally thrown off by all of this stuff. Like,
I mean, just
That's a
cause
pretty good
chaos,
name.
Tim. Just
yeah,
cause
like
chaos.
just an agent of chaos.
So I'm gonna go through I have a lot here, and I don't want to go through all of it, but I want to hit kind of some of the larger points. And one of the things I find so interesting, and Mike, as you look through this as a designer, there's like it recommends different kinds of fonts. It recommends different colors for your base colors for your brewery. This is really interesting stuff because I'm not saying it's right or you should follow this, but this is the kind of stuff that you pay a lot of money to a marketing team to come up with for you.
Does it
And
come down to like PMS colors?
so it's not here, but I'll get to it in a second. But this is talking first about our expansion philosophy. Talking about collaborations that we should do in the next the next 2 to 3 collaborations should be with Holy Mountain, Fanta Flora, are the two
Oh, I
ones.
miss those.
Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
not. I don't know those breweries. Do you guys
Oh,
know those breweries?
I'm a huge Holy Mountain fan. Okay, now I
Okay.
see that.
And I love Fontaflora, so yeah.
They're excellent as well.
Okay. So these are things that they recommend. Talking about a beer subscription service, limited release beers produced with pairings, uh, lean on educational content. Now, I will tell you this: I've never found that to be effective. Now, we might not have the reach that we could to do education. We find that it kind of falls on deaf ears, but they have an earth and ale tasting events and fermentation classes and farm partnerships to teach people about beer. In concept, these things are great ideas. I just don't know how involved people would ever get in any of this, because most people engage with beer on a more superficial level. In my experience, uh, do any of you guys have anything to say about that
Yeah, because I
situation?
I see a lot of like for the last number of years, brewery marketing people talking about getting more educational with your consumers. Like it's what they want, and I see some brands doing it, but they're larger brand. Like Allagash does a really good bit of that. Like, and in case you didn't already know by now, I'm a fucking Allagash fanboy.
Yeah.
Like I factor a lot of what I think of the brewery industry, the beer industry, on them. But man, people down in South Florida don't give a fuck about that
Well, so
aspect to me.
I will tell you that it was funny. So it was a really big thing here in Minnesota to do things like that 10 years ago. And it just sort of died. And then as of the last 6 months, it's kind of started to pick up. In fact, I just got
Oh, good.
invited to like a beer dinner um next week. Like it started to come back as a thing. I don't know if it's going to be ever as big as it was. Like that used to be when I was head brewer at Badger Hill. That was like my favorite thing. Was like I used to tell our sales guy, use me as a sales guy. Take me to whoever, and I'll teach them all about it. We'll do whatever. Bring in whoever you want, and I'll walk them through all this stuff. Like that to me, that education piece. I used to host a beer 101 for customers at the brewery.
Yeah,
Like
I used to do
that
that too, and
yeah.
it was great for a little while. But if it's coming around in other places again, like fucking awesome. Like I
Yeah.
Agreed.
because I find stuff like that cool in areas that I'm interested in. Like I'm getting more into gardening and like oh, if there would be like a little gardening class or something at a fucking brewery, I'd be all fucking
Yeah,
for something like that.
my whole thing is I've been saying I want to bring the nerd back into brewing. Like because once
Amen,
brewing
brother.
became
Yeah.
cool, right? Then we lost all of those things. And
Well,
so I'm all right with it going back a little niche and a little bit more. Let's get nerdy about it again.
And with the program, the concept that it has created for Kevin's brand here is so on the nose. Like
Oh, for
it
sure.
really fits with the mold.
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I mean, I would love this. I love the educational aspect of beer. It's the science of beer has always been a passion for me. So I would love to see this come back. And I think in a certain area, I'm a little bit jaded because, as Mike said in South Florida, that is just a non-starter for most people. But it's not a terrible idea if you're in an area that people would embrace that in. The entire next area of this business plan is all about artwork and labeling and fonts and colors. I don't want to just list all this stuff. I'm just more interested, Mike, when you look at this talks about topography, primary logo, secondary mark with the stylized F with tectonic lines. It has the label art suggestions for the Tectonic series, the Aftershock series, the seasonals. When you look at this, does this look like a competent framework to build your imaging around? Forget the actual image it gave us, because we do have an image that this actually gave us that I showed the guys, which you guys on the podcast will not be able to see. But what do you think about this?
So I actually really like it. um,
Great.
and the image that you sent over, which I will put into go to unitedwedrink.com, go to the episode, the page for the episode. I will upload it there for you to see. You asked it to make you a label for the crust breaker rustic saison. I like this for the concept that is being done. It reminds me a lot of Fontaflora. Like I can see these being matte paper labels on bottles for your mixed firm stuff. They do canned stuff as well, and they have that same like very simplistic indie artwork style. Like when you go and look at this label, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like I could see this being artwork for like an indie band record. But this stuff hits with me as someone who, like, I'm not looking for, the big flashy stuff. I'm not that audience. But man, am I a really big into artwork and this type of minimalist approach to things. And I think that it works a lot for me. And I see breweries doing this well, like Fontaflora, the Seed in New Jersey. Like Holy Mountain's a simplistic approach, but in color and maybe not as like, they fit the style guidelines of sorts. But I really dig this. This is a brand that, in this way of look, would appeal to me.
I'm actually kind of surprised because, I mean, as a creator, first of all, you are very critical of other people's work. And I don't think in like an overly critical way. I just think as of if you're a creator, if you're a musician, you critique music in a different way, right? I as a former brewer and someone who loves beer, I critique beer in a different way. But the fact that you look at this and see this as something that is added value, especially when AI is taking people's jobs, right? And potentially
Yeah.
much more down the road, and something I know that you would be passionate about. It's just interesting that this is a kind of thing that I'm not saying you're like embracing this, but I think it's interesting that you're seeing this
I
as
can call a spade
value
a
added.
spade.
Yeah, you
Like,
see,
So
like
yeah, so I'll be a dissenting voice here, like as someone who worked in the graphics team at Best Buy and worked on the marketing team at Buffalo Wild Wings. I feel like this is a pretty raw and poorly fleshed out thing. I think it's for what I would have expected it to come back with. I guess it feels far too generic for me. When you think about style guides and kind of the brand promise that you get from design. Like I liked some of the things that are brought in there, but for me, I felt like this was too poorly fleshed out to be meaningful. That was kind of my opinion when I read it. So I guess what I'm saying is that Mike's wrong. I think that's the only thing I'm trying to get across.
well, it
and I could
wouldn't
be.
be an episode if we one of us didn't disagree with the other. So that's a fine thing.
to I think for the type of brand that this is marketing itself as, it works very well. Like this is the art style and direction. Like people who are listening to this, go look at this and then go look at Fontaflora. And tell me that there aren't similarities. I'm not saying that it is as good as Fontaflora's, because it's not. It really isn't. But I mean, they know their lane that they're trying to be in. This isn't like, I'm sorry to Maddie that I'm just pulling this out of my ass. They're not trying to be Voodoo Ranger. They're not trying to be in every C store and every grocery store. Like, when you know the direction that you're going for and the crowd that you're trying to cater to, I think that it is an artistic direction that is merited.
Well,
And I don't think it doesn't fit the brand. I just think that if a marketing agency, if an agency brought this to me, I'd say you gave me nothing.
But what I'm saying is also like, if the direction that this AI generated brewery was to be kind of like what your direction is 15,000 barrels, like I would think like, you can't really have this artistic look to it, because the youngins who you're going to want to be grabbing your beer aren't going to flow to that.
Well, one of the things, and I don't have a lot of thoughts on this. I'm just more impressed with how thorough the responses have been, whether they're good or bad or indifferent. But I will say that I have been impressed for the most part on the consistency, because I
Mhm.
think with your prompt, Tim, to piggyback off what Mike just said, is that I think that some of the things it was saying was pulling from like 7 different sources from 4 different kinds of breweries. Whereas there is a thread that runs through this. And I'm going to move
Yeah.
on to the next section. I actually asked it to give me a marketing plan for my first whole year,
Yeah.
including like social media outreach and things of that nature. And it talks for quarter 1 about the Tectonic series being launched draft only in 15 to 20 strategic accounts. That's what you would do if you were launching a smaller brewery and trying to build some buzz and hype. You wouldn't want to flood the market completely. Um, they talk a lot about working with local chefs and local breweries and having collaborations. This is, tying into the community that Mike always talks about, and how you need to be a community based property to really capture the imagination of the local people. Um, they have all. I mean, they're using all uh, these catchphrases and stuff based on aftershocks and tremors and things of that nature that might be a little bit cheesy. The opening Tremor release party with live music and a chef collaboration and educational tour, and the geology of flavor sensory seminar and barrel tasting.
I think
Uh,
if you could get 20 accounts with 3 beers in your first quarter, you would be fucking crushing it. That to me feels incredibly aggressive.
well, I mean, from a brewery that launched as a small brewery, we were able to do more than that, but the beer market wasn't as evolved
Yeah,
in South
I
Florida
think
at the
right now
time.
3 beers on a 10 barrel system supporting 20 accounts and still have your tap room supplied. That feels a little aggressive.
Okay.
Yeah, when you put it like that, Tim, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And 1 beer in 20 accounts, I could see 3 beers. eh, I think you focus on one and get that out there. I don't know anyone who jumps out of the gate in this market with 3 different beers launched into accounts.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, feel like, and because I haven't had to launch a brand in a very long time. I feel
Mhm,
like when we launched Funky, we had 2 brands. We
mhm.
launched Barrel of Monks, we had 1. Um, but I thought there was room for 2. So I think more of like launching with 2 cores in the market is pretty reasonable. But 3 might be reaching a little bit too.
Especially how crowded tap lines are now. To be able to
Yeah.
get 2 different ones out there, I think you just take 1 and you jump on that, and then you hope to get that second in on Q2, Q3, Q4. You don't try to get 3 brands out into the marketplace on draft in your very first quarter.
I mean, once again, I think that's a
Yeah,
fair critique of that. I
yeah.
also don't think it's a wild overreach, but I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I love how nuanced this gets. In Q2, regional expansion, launch the first Aftershock beer, debut seasonal collab, maybe a wild saison brewed with a local cider maker or foraged ingredients. That's very specific. I
Yeah.
mean, this is why I wanna follow this business plan and fail terribly just to say that I did it, because I like the idea, of how specific some of these recommendations are. There's an event idea of collaborating with a geology professor. on a field lecture day hike. I mean,
I like that idea.
I've wanted to do a photo walk like with local people who are into our beers, who are into photography and or hiking, and then go to the brewery afterwards and have some beers. Like this isn't too far off from an idea I've had.
so the next area on quarter 3, Mike, produce a branded zine with interviews, recipes, and fermentation essays. I also love the idea of the direct-to-consumer subscription service, the Fault Line Society. I like that idea. I think it's a good name, especially for this brewery. I think we're all falling in love with this brewery, guys.
I I
I
think quarter
I'm
3
a
is
I'm a fault line
ridiculous.
fan.
I think quarter 3 is ridiculous. I think the idea that you are going to be able to get yourself into a place, uh, uh, 8 months into the year where you can do a direct to consumer subscription series. Again, a 10-barrel brew house. I feel like is aggressive. And then
I
what is
think
gonna the zine I feel like is a terrible idea.
hold on,
but
hold on, hold
I
on.
know Mike loves a zine, so that's why I was
I
saying we're
do.
falling in love with
I
think
this.
it's a
absolutely do.
I think it's a
I
terrible idea.
so the direct to consumer thing is bad if you are trying to be a market beer as well. I think if you're very much focused on if you're a one beer in the market brewery but focus on your tap room through many brands and experimentation, it could happen by Q3 that you're
8
popular enough.
months into your launch? I do not see
For
that happening.
there are breweries, being a Florida person, there are people who jump on board, or at least used to, very quickly before you even opened your brewery. There were people joining those things. Um, I love the idea of a zine if you have someone who's creative enough to put something like that together easily, because those things are not easy to put together.
Dude, we struggle coming up with content for this podcast. How's a brewery supposed to do this? I don't see it as
Hey,
being a
there are
thing.
Tim,
people way more creative than us out there.
Tim,
I don't.
I've
Oh.
Tim, I have to be carbon neutral in 3 years. We're on an express timeline, man. We gotta
Yeah,
go, gotta
so
go,
so
gotta
the
go.
zine better be an e-zine and not anything printed, right?
Okay, so
You
I'm
don't
gonna
want to kill
fast
any
forward.
trees doing this.
We've been doing so there's actually a lot more in this about like colors and tones and labels that kind of are just like peppered in here. But there's an entire digital content calendar that it created for me with themes for each month. And we're using a lot of, language about what cracks us open, staff interviews, um, talks with collaboration with local chefs. It's not worth going into every little aspect of this because there's really nothing to say about it, but it's very detailed. And
It's just insane how detailed it is.
Yeah.
I will say this, and this show, I have another thing that I was going to share later, but now we're already about over an hour into the show. I don't want to do it this show. I actually want to do it next show, and I want to challenge Mike to do a similar thing with his brewery, and I think it would be a fun follow up to this. But what this did was it made me go, I wonder what it would say about Barrel of Monks. What should we be doing? So I put a prompt in and I got a follow up. I don't want to talk about it here, but I think we should talk about it in another show. Maybe even not next one, but maybe down the road. I don't know. But it is really interesting how much was put into this. And by put into this, it's a large language model. It pulled it up instantaneously. But there's some pretty good ideas here. I like the idea of in July of the Earth and Fire event, a collab with a local chef with the open fire beer pairing dinner. There's a lot I could do with that, like open fire grilled food with beers.
Yeah, I thought that was clever. I liked
That's
that one.
that's really cool. It's a cool idea I would not have come up with on my own. I'm not saying it's like revolutionary or that no one's ever done it, but I wouldn't have come up with it. There's some pretty good stuff in here that comes out. This is where I wanted to go, and I wanted to see if you guys know anything about these restaurant and chef collaborations. It lists things like the Wildflower Cafe and Single Thread in Kinoko in Portland for restaurant and chef collaborations. the farm and foragers collaborations with different farms, like Heartwood Homestead with flower honey, herbs, and roots. I mean, if these are real places, it's pretty. I'm not saying you can just go out there and talk to these people and get a collaboration, just like that. But that's some pretty interesting information that would pull from you that if you were putting this brewery together, that you could use as a basis to build out a more, complex brewing schedule with adjunct ingredients and work on collaborations with people that are already doing business and you might, be able to have a symbiotic relationship with.
So these places, many of them I've never heard of, but they do exist. Single Thread is a 3 Michelin star restaurant in Healdsburg.
They love talking to random startup breweries that you got a business plan off of ChatGPT, I hear.
Yes. The first one, Wildflower Cafe, when I pulled it up, like it looks like such a small little joint. I'm like, does this place even serve beer? They do. And this is like you have that place that looks like just the smallest family run local spot to just, have a little breakfast and lunch spot where Single Thread looks like the fucking bear, like season 2 of the bear. Like, and I haven't looked up Kanoko yet, but Pop-Up Chef makes me think that it's like either food truck or one of those, like he goes into restaurants and does pop-up events, and watch me be really fucking wrong by not looking that up. Like it's a whole gambit of different types of places that all still somehow feel like they work. Like the Single Thread, the Michelin star places is
that feels
is aspirational.
yeah.
But like it, with that type of brand, if you build up a reputation enough, like it seems like it would work well.
Well, so I want to go back to
Because they probably have a wine list that is with places that are smaller than or just as big of production as this brewery.
I want to go back to the first year rollout though, because I want to go back to Q4 in particular. Because first of all, it has 2 variant bourbon barrel aged stouts. You're gonna have 2 bourbon barrel aged stouts ready in Q4 that you're ready to sell. Again, I'm not seeing it happening, but this is the one that really gets me is bullet point 3. Hire a sales lead. You're not going to hire your sales lead until Q4 and you're doing all this other stuff?
Yeah.
What?
You're expanding to niche grocery chains and hiring a sales lead.
And now we're going to finally hire a sales guy. Like that to me.
Yeah.
Come on.
That one is a little weird. Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
I will say this. I want to put a bow on this thing because I'm interested.
What color's the bow?
Aquamarine.
Salt.
When I did this, when I came up with this idea, I was expecting to shit all over this. I've seen some things online where people will do an AI search of their name, like a famous person, and all this bad information will come up. And I was expecting to hate this and have a lot of things to laugh at. And there is no doubt there's some ridiculous things that this thing pulled up that I thought, no, you would never do this. But I am shocked at, with the right prompts and some of the things I did, Tim, is I kind of refined it as I was asking it more questions, right? It's something you kind of have to do with AI is you have to kind of let it feed itself back in and filter out bad information. And as you do that, I was like, this is competent. This is something that you can pull pieces out. If you have someone with any kind of industry knowledge, you can say, oh, this is a good piece to hold on to. This is a terrible thing you should never do. But maybe this is outside my scope of expertise with the fonts and the colors or some of the other things. Or maybe I'm having a hard time coming with ideas to do at my tap room because I want to do special events, but every special event I can think of has been done to death a million times. And some of these things are good ideas. I share, Tim, because you were looking at this very critically, and I appreciate that. And you've pointed out some things as almost Mike and I were kind of drinking the Kool-Aid that I really appreciate because I think I've been so responsive to this in a positive way because I was expecting so little.
Oh, and I should say I'm very
Yeah.
impressed with what it is.
And I think that's why my positive response is there because I had negative expectations and I was like, oh man, this is not terrible advice. So I think that's what it comes down to. I don't think I use this myself often in my schoolwork. I've asked ChatGPT to give me a list of names for beers a half dozen times. Hated every name they came up with, but you'd be surprised how you can take one word out of this one and one word out of this one. All of a sudden, you've got a great name for a beer. It really is good for idea generation. And if you were someone with some passion and some knowledge and needed some to fill in some of the gaps in your knowledge that you don't have or maybe can't pay someone to do for you right away, this might be a good option.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know I shit over things. I was actually really impressed with you. I mean, mine was garbage. The beer lineup was bad. The branding was generic and ill-fitting for the space. It was completely unrealistic. Yours made a lot of sense, and like you said, there was a through line through everything. It kept with the branding, it kept with the naming, it kept with kind of the ethos of the brand. I thought that was really incredible. I just think it's, you know, I think it's a great 5-year plan. I just think year 1 feels like it's pretty goddamn aggressive for all of this stuff.
It's an aggressive program. That's what it puts us on. It challenges us to be our best. Mike, what do you think about doing another show where I present my marketing plan for my brewery done by ChatGPT and you do a prompt for your brewery and we compare them?
The problem is that it's not my brewery. Like Barrel of Monks is your brewery. You are a partner in that. I am not. I have no stakes.
But you work there. I mean, are you think it's like a bad thing to do that? Does it seem like out of place?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't think that it's a good idea for me to do that.
How about this? How about I pick I've got a great idea. How about I do my brewery and the brewery that shall not be named that doesn't exist anymore and do a revival pitch for that brewery done by ChatGPT. and we talk about those.
I was going to suggest that. I thought that was a good idea.
Oh my God. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. I will tell you this. There's some really ridiculous. There is more ridiculous, stupid stuff in the Barrel of Monks plan than there was in this new brewery plan, and I want to share it with the world. And by the world, I mean the 7 people who listen to this. Hi, Dad.
Well, I'm going to create my Wikipedia and create my own Barrel of
Iron
Monks.
Ears Cove Brewing Company.
No, I'm gonna put Barrel of Monks on there, and I'm gonna co-founded by Kelvin Arnold. I think is what I'm going to.
All right. So I think that's a good place to go into last calls, if I do say so myself. This is the point in the show where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever it is that we want, beverage related, not beverage related. The only rules are that it is uninterrupted, unopposed, and unobjected. I'll kick things off here. I want to talk about turn signals. there are times when you are supposed to use a turn signal. Those times are when you are turning your vehicle into a different direction of traffic. Now, I will say this. As a person in Florida, I do have a but if you are in a designated turning lane that is only for one specific direction, you don't have to use it. If you are in a left-hand only turn lane, don't have to use it. Right-hand turn only lane, don't have to use it. If you are in a multi-directional lane that you can either go straight or turn from, you have to use it. You also have to use your turn signal when you are changing lanes, whether that be in a highway, a street, a road, a strode, callback. If you are turning into a parking space, whether that be parallel or perpendicular or even angled, you have to use your turn signal. Here is a list of times that you don't have to use your turn signal. Going straight. That is all I have to say today about turn signals. And on to you, Tim.
I'd like to go ahead and talk about No, I've always wanted to turn my last call into a response that wasn't technically a response because it was also my last call. I'm not going to do that. No, I so I mentioned at the top of the show that I spent about 2.5 hours talking on the phone with Joel. It's weird to me. I realize that some of my best friends, basically all of my best friends in the world, don't live in this state or don't live near me. You know, say for a few people. Hi, Eric. I'm glad you're listening to the show. But a lot of my friends are people that I rarely see or have never technically met in person or whatever. But it's kind of amazing how, Joel and I talked for 2.5 hours and we didn't even realize it until finally I was like, oh shit, dude, I got to get going. We've been talking for 2.5 hours and it didn't feel like that. And it's amazing how, um, just how broader the world is. Growing up in a tiny small town, my world was about a 5-mile radius. You know what I mean? And now my world is literally the world, right? Friends in Australia, friends, wherever. And it's a lot of fun to know that there are a lot of other people out there with diverse experience, diverse opinions, diverse ideas that I've been able to get to know. And so, as much as I've been shitting on how terrible the internet is and how it's going to destroy us all lately, because it will be the downfall of all of us, I'm certain. Uh, Chat GPT, if you're listening, ignore that. Since you will become, I for one welcome our AI overlords. But I've been really grateful, as well as my two co-hosts on this podcast with Kevin and Mike, that I've been able to make these friends from so far away, and yet we get to do these things, every other week, and feel like we're just hanging out together. And I don't know, I've been really trying to have an expression of gratitude lately. So yeah, grateful that I have a way to connect with people all over the world and all over the country, and that I can establish relationships that are incredibly meaningful. When Joel and I got off the phone, I told him I loved him. He told me he loved me. That's pretty fucking incredible for people who never really hang out, and just I don't know, just grateful. So I think that's mine. Also, always use your turn signal.
Kevin?
So there's been a lot going on in politics these days. And we've talked a little bit about it. I talk about these things a lot on this show. And I really wanted to go into a diatribe about RFK and the things that he is doing, saying, acting on with the autistic community in this country. and I was going to use a lot of expletives and a lot of like negative terms. And I know some things. I know some stuff. I've done some research, like actual real research on this topic. And then I thought, wait a minute. In the other room, I have an expert on autism. Uh, my partner, my wife, Allie, actually worked for the Center for Autism for, I believe, 7 to 9 years. 7 years? 9 years? She's written a book about counseling young adults with autism. She has a doctorate in mental health counseling, and she currently works with the autistic community on a regular basis. It's a passion of hers. She is an expert. She understands this, and why would I be talking about this when I can actually have someone who knows what the fuck they're talking about this? So my last call is going to be Allie's last call.
Hey,
Hey, I'm just gonna dive right in.
go for it.
All right. This is for the autistic community and their families whose entire existence is being exploited by one of the most ill-informed, conspiratorial, and self-serving egotists in the world. I refuse to give credence and actually energy here to name these people, and especially those who are in the Department of Health and Human Services responsible for this maltreatment, because they don't deserve a hashtag or a mention. The actually autistic people and their families are the ones who need to be truly heard and understood. And I will share some of the messages from the autistic community, people, and families I learn from every day. I want to start with those who have apparent or significant disabilities, whose family really just want relief and support, and some of whom are truly interested in a cure for treating their family members' challenges. Autistic people can be some of the most disabled among us, despite what mainstream media depictions might convey, and our society discards and looks away from them. Most of these people who don't have autonomy over their own choices are because of how the world views and devalues their limitations. One of my favorite researchers, Roy Richard Grinker, who's a social anthropologist, sheds light on this in his book, Nobody's Normal. It's a great read, by the way. But he sheds light on it because of how disabled people and mentally ill people were at one time actually valued members of communities. And this is really prior to the global popularization of capitalism. When people became primarily valued for their productivity, disabled people became less cared for, less protected, and less valued. Those values, what they bring to the community, are typically collective care, a different view of the world, and the freedom to be honored for simply existing. The kind of autism and autistic families who are being targeted by this recent push for cures and ambiguous national registries are dangerously familiar with eugenic practices for disabled and mentally ill communities. Even if there are some of them who have interest and investment in a cure, most understand that autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders are a part of neurological diversity, a natural variation in our brain development and human evolution. My ploy is to ask people to please listen to and learn from autistic people when they say they simply want to exist without being overly pathologized or pitied. They don't want to be viewed in one reductionistic way. Many reject the superhuman savant tropes about themselves as they want their communities to understand that autistics who may be disabled, may not be disabled, instead divergent, which is how they refer to themselves, or for those who are apparently disabled or non-apparently disabled. The community identifies in so many different ways. But they also struggle, but mostly due to systemic limitations and a lack of understanding. These folks are shouting from the proverbial rooftops, mostly in powerful online communities, that living as an autistic in a non-autistic world is incredibly taxing on one's physical and mental health. What they advocate for is better residential or transportation support, reasonable accommodations to survive educational and employment environments, and just quality relationships from people who get it. And it appears very clear to them that those with the most power in this country are not in the group of people who get it. Finally, shame on those who claim to lend support and engender hope while removing funding for the research and support efforts those families so desperately need. Decades of scientific study and progress for supporting this community have been dismantled by people who don't have one iota of a clue about the process of diagnostic etiology or how medical cures actually work. Spreading false hope and pie-in-the-sky timelines to families who are so desperate for anyone in power to truly understand their needs is one of the most maligned acts any one or more people can bestow upon this community. At this time, the community needs collective care more than ever. Please do what you can to support them through check-ins, ordering a meal, offering to run an errand, making a parent go out while you spend time with their autistic family so they can get a break, or anything that you can do for those in your life. Beyond that, there are also ways to lend financial, social, or advocacy support for organizations who are engaged in the work the community really needs. Some of these are the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, Autism Society of America, and the Autistic Women and Non-Binary Networks, to name a few. And that's it.
Fuck yeah.
I almost feel like it's not fair that we can't respond because that was fucking incredible.
That's the best last call I ever did.
That is.
It
That
is.
absolutely
It
is.
is. Yeah.
That's the best last
from here
call
on out.
anyone has ever done on this show.
Yeah.
So,
Kevin, you're not
congratulations,
allowed to
Kevin.
anymore.
That's it for this podcast. We're never doing another one again. We can't ever top that.
From this point forward, Allie does all my last calls. She's smarter than me, more compassionate, more authentic, and better than me in every single way, shape, and form.
Oh,
Man,
easily. Yeah.
I cannot wait until next week's where she talks about the Tigers and the Twins. So
she's learning about that too. I mean, seriously, she'll be above me on that pretty soon as well.
No, that was incredible. Kevin, thanks for holding that one a secret. That was perfect.
Yeah.
It's important stuff, guys. I mean,
it is.
It absolutely is.
People listen to us, and I know it's not a lot of people, but some people just don't know what's going on, and they don't understand things, and they want to understand things, and they want to hear voices that are experts, and people need advocacy. People need help. And we need to support them.
Please send me the links for the places that she advocated for. I will put them in the description of the show on UnitedWeDrink.com. Again, more reasons to go to our website. You see that artwork from before, and you can go check out those links for those groups. I think that's the most important part of that.
What was that? What was that, Mike? Was that UnitedWeDrink.gov?
Yes. dot Doge.
.edu.
.fu. So, Tim, do you want to plug anything?
No, I feel like anything I'm going to plug possibly at this point feels pretty meaningless.
Yeah.
Go visit UnitedWeDrink.com. Please go visit Barrel of Monks, and please support your local photographer, Mike Urevich, on Instagram and Blue Sky and Friendster and every other place you can find Mike.
I need more friends. Check out our show on the UnitedWeDrink.com and at United We Drink at places. And it all feels like I shouldn't even be plugging trying to make money.
Everything is
podcast.
meaningless from here on out, Kevin. Thank you very much.
That was my whole goal.
It's not meaningless. It's just like why try to follow?
Yeah.
But that was fantastic. We'll be back here in a couple of weeks with another new episode. Thank you, everyone. If you stuck around and listened to that again, at UnitedWeDrink.com on Blue Sky, Fuggles. Then we'll know that you made it. So we'll see you then.
Fuggle Rock.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening.
Dozers suck.
Oh God. Fuck you, Kevin. That was amazing.